Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Sri Prabhupada Ki. Demigods like Brahma also follow the religious rites observed by him. He is the controller of the material energy, which causes the creation of the material world. He is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. Please respond. Demigods like Brahma also follow the religious rites observed by him. He is the controller of the material energy, which causes the creation of the material world. He is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. Purport. Lord Shiva is the husband of Durga, the controller of the material energy. Durga is personified material energy, and Lord Shiva, being her husband, is the controller of the material energy. He is also the incarnation of the mode of ignorance, and one of the three deities representing the Supreme Lord. As his representative, Lord Shiva is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is very great, and his renunciation of all material enjoyment is an ideal example of how one should be materially unattached. One should therefore follow in his footsteps and be unattached to matter, not imitate his uncommon activities like drinking poison. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadam Mayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purijina Saitam Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhinevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Karambakanda Swami. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Feeling very fortunate to get this opportunity to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam, to glorify Lord Shiva, and humbly seeking the blessings of all the esteemed Vaishnavas that what we say may be pleasing, may be following the purpose of Srila Prabhupada, and may be somehow beneficial in our spiritual life. So, here we've got a series of verses where descriptions of Lord Shiva are given. Lord Shiva is one personality who is very difficult to understand. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport is making the clear statement that one should follow in the footsteps of Lord Shiva, but not imitate his uncommon acts like drinking poison. So this is what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on how we can follow in the footsteps of Lord Shiva, but not imitate his uncommon acts. So this actual reference to Lord Shiva drinking poison, this comes up in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. After Shukadeva Goswami has described Krishna's Rasa Leela activities, then Parikshit Maharaj although himself fully understanding the transcendental nature of Krishna, he perhaps feels that some other members of the assembly and also people who are later to hear Srimad Bhagavatam may misunderstand Krishna's activities and may try and imitate Krishna's activities. And therefore, for the benefit of everyone, Parikshit Maharaj, he inquires from Shukadev Goswami, and he says, how is it that the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna has come to establish Dharma samstarpanartaya? He's come, and he, in the middle of the night, is engaged in dancing with other men's wives. Parikshit Maharaj says such an activity, from the moral, mundane point of view, is jugupsitam, which means abominable or contemptible. And we understand from Bhagavad Gita that yad yad acharati srestas tad tadevi tarojanaha, that whatever activity a great man does, common men follow. And Krishna is the greatest man, the greatest personality. Therefore, if he acts in a certain way, then ordinary people may be misled to act in such a way. But thankfully, this conversation is actually recorded within the very, very pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. And so Parikshit Maharaj gives this humble question to his spiritual master, to Shukadev Goswami. And Shukadev Goswami, he answers that those who are very great personalities, they are not necessarily under the same jurisdiction as those who are lesser personalities. Even in a material sense, that the child has to do what the parent says, but the parent doesn't necessarily have to do the same thing that parent says. The parent says, eat your vegetables, but the parent themselves, they don't necessarily have to. These laws of morality, they exist to protect us, but just like the sunshine is so potent that it can purify a very contaminated place. It can even purify urine or stool without becoming contaminated itself, because it's so powerful. So the first answer that Srila Shukadev Goswami gives is that Krishna is not affected by the morality of this world. But then he goes deeper than that. Then he goes to say how the activities of Krishna are not to be imitated. Just like Krishna can lift Govardhan Hill. If we try and lift Govardhan Hill, we would get nowhere. Therefore, we do not have the potency of Krishna. Then how could we possibly hope to imitate? And finally, he goes on to say that really Krishna is establishing Dharma by demonstrating and by showing us these pastimes, establishing the highest Dharma, that Krishna is God and we are not. And therefore, as Prabhupada would say, real Dharma is sarva dharma prityaja. Give up all Dharma and just surrender to Krishna. And so Srila Sukadeva Goswami, he says that he had this reference to drinking poison, that if one tries to imitate the activities of Krishna, it's like one trying to imitate the activities of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, he drank an ocean of poison for the benefit of everyone. We'll come on to this pastime later. But if one artificially thinks that they can also act in the same platform as Lord Shiva without the actual qualification or the empowerment, then they will simply die. Lord Shiva, he could drink this ocean of poison and simply a blue line would appear on his neck, if he's known as Nilakanta. And so similarly, people who try and imitate Lord Shiva think, well, Lord Shiva, he would drink poison, so maybe I can take some other substance which may be considered somewhat poisonous. Prabhupada writes ganja. Prabhupada says simply, they will die. Because if we try and imitate, we're missing the point. We have to follow in the footsteps. So in Sanskrit it's described that anukara means to follow, to imitate, to do the same activities, but anusara means to take the essence and to follow in the footsteps of what that person actually desires. So today I thought we could look at three particular characteristics or attributes of Lord Shiva which we can aspire to follow in the footsteps of. Not to imitate, but to learn from. So the very first one we see even in the context of this pastime, Kashyapa is speaking to Diti about why they should not have union at this particular inauspicious time, because Lord Shiva is in control of this particular time, and he will arrange that some demoniac or some lower living entities will then take birth within her womb. And Lord Shiva is not doing this sort of thing out of spitefulness or doing this sort of activity because he likes to act on this grossly demoniac platform. He's doing it out of sheer compassion that due to circumstances, personalities get more and more contaminated by the lower modes of material nature, and they may even end up in a place where they perhaps commit suicide. They do not have a gross material body, and they're very much in a difficult situation. And therefore they take shelter of Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva actually arranging for how they can become advanced. That if one doesn't have a physical body, then for them to receive a physical body is very beneficial for them. So Lord Shiva is acting out of compassion, and he's associating with the lower material modes out of compassion. Lord Shiva himself, we understand Vaishnavam Yata Shambhu, he's the topmost devotee, but he associates with these lower material modes to purify the people who are situated in these modes. And so we can also appreciate someone like Srila Prabhupada. He's fully absorbed in Vrindavan consciousness, but he will come and associate with the lower modes of the Lower East Side and associate with drunkards and hippies and people who are intoxicated and eating meat simply out of compassion. The one is not simply attached to their own spiritual well-being, but associates with lower material mode in order to purify those personalities. But this has to be done with caution and with care. If we were to act like Lord Shiva and wear ashes and skulls and exist in crematoriums and be very much associating with the mode of ignorance, we would be thoroughly lost in our ability to actually practice spiritual life. Therefore, we do act in this platform of compassion, but we have to do it with care and with caution. And that's why living in a temple is very beautiful, because the temple is a mode of, well, it's actually transcendental, but the mode of goodness is predominant. You dress in a certain clean way, you come every day and you see the deities, you offer obeisances to the deities. Simply seeing the deities brings one immediately to the platform of goodness. So therefore, if we do go out and we do try and share Krishna consciousness with people who are in lower modes of material nature, we have some protection. But you feel it if you're away from the temple for some time, you feel that protection. It's almost like you have a glider plane. It's in the sky, it's got some power, it's being pulled by a higher plane, and then it gets let go, and it can float for some time, but eventually it starts to come down. You start to notice if you're away from the temple or away from devotees, then your ability to actually exist in the higher mode of material nature becomes very difficult. We're so much influenced by these modes of material nature. Therefore, we have to make some endeavor to associate with the mode of goodness. That's why temples are such a beautiful environment. So this is Lord Shiva's compassion. And similarly, as mentioned with him drinking poison, the pastime is given in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when the devatas and the demons are busy churning this ocean of milk in order to get amrita, to get nectar. And they're churning, they're getting very tired, so eventually the Supreme Lord, Ajita, he comes and he's also churning. And what's produced is hala poison, which is very, very deadly, destroying everything. And the Prajapatis, Lord Shiva, he's not actually involved in this whole churning of the ocean. He's got no need for nectar. He's sitting in Kailash, absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Lord. But as all the demons and the demigods and the Prajapatis, those who are in charge of populating the entire universe, they see this poison overtaking everywhere. They run to Lord Shiva. They're desperately seeking his help. And they pray to Lord Shiva. They offer beautiful prayers. And then Lord Shiva, out of compassion, he then goes down and he scoops up all that poison with the palm of his hand, and he drinks it, giving him this beautiful ornament on his neck, this blue line, Nilakanta. And so we see Lord Shiva's compassion. So similarly, we should try and emulate this, but we have to understand that we are not on the platform of Lord Shiva. So we have to do according to our ability to maintain our own spiritual life. So this is the first quality of Lord Shiva. Secondly, we can also appreciate his detachment. In this purport, Prabhupada is describing how Shiva is the husband of Durga, who is the controller of the material energy. She's personified material energy. And Lord Shiva, being her husband, is in control of her. Yet there's not one single example of Lord Shiva ever trying to enjoy the material energy. He's homeless. He has got no fixed residence. He dresses in clothes which would not normally be considered particularly desirable. He wears ashes and necklaces of skulls, and so he's detached from matter in his activities. But even more, his detachment is even deeper than that. That even if you look at these verses which we're reading, they're describing the glories of Lord Shiva, but how very few people actually understand his glories. He's saying in the verse, he is great, and therefore his devilish activities are simply imitation. Vidambanam, they're imitation. And previously it's saying, unfortunate, foolish persons, not knowing that he's engaged in his own self, laugh at him. And so Lord Shiva is taking this remarkable position where he is uplifting all those situated in the lower modes of material nature. And those situated in the higher modes of material nature, it's unlikely they can even appreciate the service he's doing. And so we understand in our own life, if we're doing some service, naturally it becomes, if no one can appreciate the service you're doing, it becomes very difficult to continue, because we need to feel that somehow at least a few people round about me appreciate what it is that I am doing. But Lord Shiva, he's so detached that although very few people can actually understand the glories of him, still he selflessly engages in this service. And so even within our movement, there's many examples of great personalities who have done phenomenal service which may not be necessarily appreciated by those around about them, particularly at that time. But they have a higher vision. Their vision is that this service is of utmost importance for Srila Prabhupada's movement, and therefore even though people are not appreciating the service, then I will actually still continue it with enthusiasm. I heard the nice analogy actually that we're having a discussion with some devotees regarding often there's many temples and farm communities throughout the world, and they have volunteers, whether it's woofers or different volunteer programs, and it can be a very beautiful program. It can also be some challenges can be there, particularly if you've got a smaller community and then you're bringing in lots of new people who are maybe interested in farms but not so much interested in Krishna consciousness, and then you want to try and connect them to Krishna, but often they don't want to just be preached to. And also, if one is a practicing devotee, don't want to spend so much time with these personalities who are not really there, not much interested in Krishna consciousness. And so one devotee was saying that the most successful projects like this have been where you have a Shiva. You have a personality who is themselves a very serious and fixed up devotee, but who can fully act on the platform of these people who are volunteering in the farm. And so you can just be their friend. You can be their friend and deal with all their sorts of problems of the mind and their love life and their desires to do this and all these things which, a pucker devotee wouldn't want to talk about. But they actually engage in that level to purify these people, and because of their connection with that personality, then they get elevated. So yeah, this is the position of Lord Shiva, is that he ultimately is so compassionate and so detached that although no one else, very few people can appreciate the service that he's doing, he engages with it with such enthusiasm. He's purifying so many conditioned living entities. And thirdly, we can also appreciate Lord Shiva's strong desire to associate with the devotees of the Lord. This is one quality of Lord Shiva which it comes up in different places throughout the Bhagavatam. Recently I've been studying what's known as the Rudra Gita. So in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 24, the Prachetas, they have been instructed by their father, Maharaj Prachini Barhishat, to go and perform austerities in order so that they can become great kings. So they go and they enter into the water, or even before they get to the water, I think, they have this desire to please austerities, to please the Lord, and they come across Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva, taking compassion on them, teaches them one beautiful prayer, which he himself was taught by Lord Brahma. It's a prayer which all the Prajapatis would chant in order to please the Lord, in order to become able to serve him. And this prayer is very, very remarkable. It's about 35 verses. And we can say there's 3 parts to the prayer. There is, initially he's establishing the position of Krishna. And then he glorifies Krishna in very, very beautiful verses. And then he asks for a benediction. And so when he's establishing the position of Krishna, he spends many verses establishing how actually there's nothing but Krishna. That this entire material universe is an expansion of his energy, that Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, they're all different expansions of Krishna. Our creation, destruction, annihilation, they're all coming from Krishna. Our Sankhya Yoga, in so many different ways, he's glorifying how actually Krishna is the source of everything. And how Krishna is not in any way contaminated by the changes and the effects of the material world. And each of these verses one could spend the whole seminar discussing. There's so much Siddhanta there. And it's very beautiful, and he goes on then to actually glorify Krishna, and particularly to glorify Krishna's form. And he gives some very, very beautiful descriptions of how Krishna is Gana Sham, how he's like a dark monsoon cloud, but that just like the rain, when the monsoon cloud is there, the rain glistens, and Krishna's bodily features also glisten. And he glorifies Krishna's eyes and Krishna's sidelong glances and Krishna's sweet smile with his devotee. And he gives beautiful verses about Krishna's black curly hair and how his garments, they move like saffron particles in the wind. It's such beautiful poetry. And he's giving all these verses glorifying Krishna's form. And then he goes on and he starts to glorify Krishna's lotus feet. And he's saying that all the darkness of the material world can be eradicated by the shining effulgence from the toenails of the Lord. And therefore he's praying that he may meditate internally within his heart upon the lotus feet of the Lord. And then he starts to glorify those who have taken shelter with the lotus feet of the Lord. And it feels like this prayer goes in a particular crescendo, like in music. It starts off in a certain place and it grows to a certain climactic point. And this prayer also goes to this, and eventually reaches a point where Lord Shiva, he's glorifying the devotees of the Lord who have taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. And he says, Atana Gangres Tavakirti Tirtaya Antar Bahishnanam Viduta Papanam Puteshana Krosha Shishatpashiranam Satsangamo Nugraha Eshanatavaha. He says that those who have fully worshipped and meditated on your lotus feet, they are completely free from all papa, both internally and externally. Just like one can become purified by bathing in the water of the Ganges, but the water of the Ganges emanates from the toes of the Lord. Therefore, one is simply meditating and worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord, then they become internally and externally so pure and very, very merciful. And so Lord Shiva is saying, my dear Lord, you are, previously said you are Ashish Isha, the Lord of all blessings. And if you do want to bless me, if you do want to give me a benediction, I've established who you are in so many verses. I've glorified you in so many verses. If you do feel inspired to give me some benediction, then please, your real mercy, Sangamo Anugraha, your real mercy would be allowing me to have the Sangha of these devotees. And Lord Shiva is teaching the Prajapatis, this is how they should pray to the Lord. That we should desire to have the Sangha of those devotees who are completely pure in heart. And so devotee association is such a valuable thing. And that's why it's glorified so much in Srimad Bhagavatam. Devotee association doesn't necessarily mean physical proximity. There's different receptivity of being in the association of a pure devotee. We can see in the life of Srila Prabhupada that he affected different people differently. Some people, they could be in this association and their whole life could transform. Other people could also be in that association and they may feel inspired, they may feel respect for this gentleman, but their life will not transform. Different receptivity is there. Like in modern healthcare, they often say, well, you have some deficiency, well, therefore just take supplements. It's not quite as simple as that, because if you could become healthy simply by taking supplements, there'll be no health problems. But you have to be able to absorb and digest and even self-produce these supplements, and therefore the health is beneficial. So we also have to understand how to fully value and to appreciate devotee association, or how to have the vision to see who actually are the devotees of the Lord, and how to see them in the right light. Maharaj Prithu is glorifying the Kumaras, and he's saying that Lord Narayan is desiring the upliftment of all living entities, and therefore he, in the form of you four Kumaras, he's traveling around the world uplifting everyone. He says that you are just like the super soul. The super soul is all pervading, but the devotees of the Lord, they also travel everywhere. Therefore, they're also all pervading. But just as the super soul is so difficult to perceive, ultimately, the super soul is within every single atom. But just like the horizontal and the vertical threads of the cloth are making the entirety of the cloth, but still we cannot see them, we just see the cloth. Or just as fire is in wood, but we just see the wood. The fire needs to be activated, needs to be kindled. Similarly, we cannot perceive the super soul with our mundane vision. Similarly, Prithu Maharaj says we cannot also perceive the Vaishnava. And Prabhupada, in his purport to that verse, he describes how neither the Supreme Lord nor the Vaishnava can be seen with mundane vision. One has to purify their senses. Rishikena, Sevanam Bhakti Ruchati. One has to purify their senses before they can fully actually appreciate who is Krishna and who is the Vaishnava. We're so close to Krishna. There is, Prabhupada writes in the purport on the Ishopanishad, there's nothing but Krishna within and without. Krishna is within our very heart, but we exist blindly trying to search for Krishna. The very tragic analogy is given there is in Bhagavatam that the musk deer spends his life looking for that musk, which is actually coming from his very navel. It's producing it itself. It spends his whole life running here, running there, trying to find it. And similarly, we're searching for Krishna, but the whole process of searching is actually just to perform devotional service and please Krishna. To please Krishna and purify the senses so we can actually see him. There's no one closer to us than Krishna. Krishna is closer to us than our very mind. Even our mind, which has been with us for lifetime upon lifetime, always telling us what to do. Krishna is closer to us than that. Same Prithu Maharaj is describing how the Vaishnava is similarly as subtle. It's difficult to actually see. And therefore, when Lord Shiva is praying that, my dear Lord, may you give me the association of your
it means